Tyler, what's the first video game you remember beating?
Mario 64.
He's such a youngin'. Zach, what's the first game you ever beat?
I remember as a kid playing a lot of games and not ever beating them, but there's one I firmly remember beating as Final Fantasy X. Used my brother's PlayStation to beat it.
Matt, what's the first game you remember beating?
Blinks 2 Master of Time and Space, or Masters of Time and Space. Very weird game that no one here at the office has ever seen, so maybe it was just a fever dream, but I remember beating that game.
David, what's the first game you remember beating?
Zelda Link to the Past.
Andrew, what's the first game you remember beating?
Akari Warriors on the Nintendo.
What's the first game you remember beating?
Golden Axe for the Sega Genesis. Golden Axe 2.
Jonah, what's the first game you remember beating?
I would have to say one of the original Pokemon games. I took my aunt's Game Boy Advance, and I was playing like Pokemon Red and stuff like that, so that's probably the first.
McAllister, what is the first game you remember beating?
First one that comes to mind is like Ratchet and Clank. I think there was the one Gone Nuts. They get trapped in like a Hunger Games tournament place and they keep having to fight their way out.
I think the first game that I kind of remember actually beating would be Halo 2 on the original Xbox, but I played a lot of games before that. I just don't really remember ever actually beating them.